Alright, hello and welcome back to Everybody Loves Raiken. Last week was kind of an interesting episode, something I tend to avoid, but I felt that it was, well, kind of important. It was a little self-indulgent, admittedly, but the party had, acquired previously a world-hopping wizard who had helped them out of some very intense magical binds with powerful magic from his homeworld. And they had told him, they'd help in whatever way they could to find the person he was looking for. Upon coming to Volinar and getting embroiled in the upheaval, I guess is what I would call it, that was going on in the city, the party was eventually asked to go to the Temple of the Raven Queen to obtain shrouds for the fallen Drow, and it was there that they met an elf who mostly fit the description that they had been given by Nerevar of the woman he was looking for, and she shared a name. So Cyrus went out on a limb and asked if she recognized the name Nerevar, which had a very strong emotional reaction from her. And so last time they had the scene where Nalia brought Nerevar to the temple, and he was reunited with his wife after at least 50 years of him being separated and searching for her. So there was an emotional scene. He was not eloquent, but I'm hoping that that my players were able to appreciate that the cutscene effectively that played out for them. Afterward, they retrieved the bodies of the Drow they had killed upon entering the city, wrapped them in the shrouds provided by the temple, and brought the almost 40 bodies back to the temple to have a ceremony in the name of the Raven Queen performed and their bodies interred. Oraskr, the tiefling cleric of the Raven Queen, was very excited when the party asked him to have a very public ceremony that the whole city would be invited to attend for the interment of these bodies. They also asked that he include some words in his sermon about Illustrae, the Dark Maiden, daughter of Lolth, that they had been informed of by Zeph, the Drow, who's been working with them to try and get the city to change its heart in regard to the Drow. This is a long and arduous process. Changing hearts and minds is not easy, and after all the bodies were brought to Oraskr, Cyrus informed the party that the man from before, Chad, was rabble-rousing in the communities out in the city, trying to rally people against the Drow. So he wanted to go and make sure that didn't turn violent. About half the party went with him, including Zeph, to go see to this. Meanwhile, the others, the four that remained, which were Leah, Yukikaze, Jebel, and Vendar, helped Oraskr prepare the bodies for the ceremony, which included removal of the clothing, cleaning of the wounds, and then stitching of those wounds, from which they learned many handy field medicine tricks. And the others went out to deal with the growing rally, and they did so by impressing on small groups of people at a time that the story, the narrative that Chad was putting forth was no longer not valid in the current situation. Things were different than he was presenting them, and they used a combination of strong words, proof of identity using Ash to prove Laramentis as a scholar of Ione, and magic to prove that they should be trusted. Cyrus showing off his ability to read minds and see through deception as a reason to believe what the Drow had been telling him. They caused several people to depart from the rally before they confronted Chad directly. Dealing with Chad directly was significantly less successful. He had good command of the crowd and their emotions, and his arguments seemed to resonate with them better than the party's, regardless of the veracity of those claims. In the end, he departed the square of his own volition, and in doing so attempted to incite the party to violence against him, but the party saw through his attempt, which they knew would cause the crowd to turn against them, so they did not rise to his attack. And that's pretty much where we ended. The party had determined they would be heading back to the temple, as it should be the ceremony of the Raven Queen should be nearly prepared, and some more stragglers, as the rally here began to disband and flow away back to their homes, had remained, and in fact showed interest in accompanying the party back to the temple to witness this ceremony, this interment of the Drow. So, the way this is going to work is I'm going to run things very slightly differently, and by that I mean we're going to play this session out like normal, but the reality here is that it's going to take more than just a couple conversations and some rolls to change the hearts and minds of the people of this city. So, we're going to play out the rest of this day through to the end, with whatever confrontations and skill challenges, as I've talked about previously, will be met. And then what's going to happen is that, and we will get to the details of this later, so I'm running on the assumption that the party is going to acquiesce to this. Of course, they could always change their mind. It's going to take some time to change the hearts and minds of the people of the city, so I believe that we can do basically what is a down period of a number of days that we will determine later that will be spent by the party working on this and some other ends, and we can determine what those other ends are at the end of the session. But I wanted to give you guys a heads up that that's how I think that we'll handle this. Especially so that if there were any, if anybody immediately saw that as a problem, they could let me know. But I think that this will work, and it will make sense. I'll be able to explain it a little bit better and give you your options better once we get there. But just so you know, it will effectively be a time skip with some benefits at the end, determined by your choices now, some rolls to determine what happens during that time skip, and then move on to the next goal. That way we're not just role-playing out basically the same day over and over again of, alright, go and talk to the people, succeed or fail at convincing some of them, and have to role-play every little nitty-gritty bit of the process of convincing people. Okay.
Alright.
I just wanted to state that ahead of time, just for full disclosure on what I'm thinking, but we'll see where we are at the end of the session. I'm hoping that by the end of the session we can be to the end of today's events and be making those decisions. Malachi, our Yukikaze, is not with us today because he had work he needed to do. I will be catching him up on things and getting his desires laid out for how things will flow thereafter when I connect with him later. So, that is where we are. So here we are in the Market District of the city of Volinar. You have Larinalia, Raiken, and Cyrus, and Zeph. The crowd is dispersing around you as Chad has taken his leave. And you have a few people who have hung on to say, they want to know more about this. They want to attend this ceremony at the Temple of the Raven Queen and are willing to go with you.
I have a question before you hop into that. What point in the story were we at when Leah joined? What were we doing?
When Leah joined the original party,
First,
you mean?
Yeah, originally joined.
Okay, so what had just happened when Leah joined was that you were on the quest for the King of Ebengard, which was to travel to the border of a neighboring nation that he wanted to make an ally of and prevent things there from escalating into a war between two nations.
So of all the party, Raiken and Bendar are the only two who were there when peace was made with the orcs.
Right.
Yep. So they have some history of this kind of thing, of brokering peace with a race that other people would have seen as evil or as monstrous.
Yep.
So just because it's been like 3 years, just reminding me, like, your characters have basically kind of done this before.
That's a very fair point.
Like 3 months ago.
You were not.
Yeah.
You are not as directly involved in being the spokesperson for the orcs as you are for these drow.
Yeah.
And Ebengard, the city of Dragon's Hearth itself, was already much more inclined to have an agreement with them, especially because they got something very valuable out of it, which was peace of mind.
It also helped, because of that, because the king was on board with it. So.
Yeah, the king was super on board with it. And
made peace with, what's his name? Was it Urag?
Urag became the leader of that tribe of orcs. And as far as those characters who were there might know, has been trying to assimilate the other tribes of orcs, so that they are all allied with the humanoid civilization of Dragon's Hearth there. At that point, your party had defeated Fulbury, the king's elder sister, who had taken command of the orc tribes as a war chief by defeating the former war chief. She fled from you, and in her place, Urag was attempting to take control of the tribes, and he was speaking on their behalf when he forged this pact with the king of Ebengard, who was more than happy to have it. It had basically entailed that the orcs became recognized citizens of Ebengard and would receive the same support from the crown that any of the other towns and cities does, as opposed to simply being tribal wanderers who have been living off the land or at times stealing from trade caravans. The agreement would be that stealing and pillaging stops in exchange for receiving aid directly if they need it. It was a fairly mutually beneficial arrangement. But, yeah. The party was less involved in that, but they did witness it, so that's a good point.
Yeah, so there's some ideas there to be drawn from, at least two members.
I agree.
Like when they're formulating their arguments.
And that can be reflected in, bonuses to rolls, if they want to make those, or just helpful information from me when those types of things come up. But, yeah, do feel free to say, do I have any bonus to this or deeper knowledge of this because of that experience in case I forget?
Okay.
Alright. So...
You're welcome.
Just gonna quickly... Alright, so... Back in character, you are here in the square in the market district. The shaded purple area represents the few people. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So somewhere between 10 and 12 people who have hung out after the rest of the crowd that had been rallied by Chad has drifted back to their homes, and they have expressed an interest in accompanying you to the Temple of the Raven Queen to witness the ceremony of the interment of the Drow.
I believe that we should be heading over now so that we can be there on time.
I agree. All right, everyone, let's head over. Raiken will start leading the way.
Alrighty. As you say that and begin heading back toward the Temple of the Raven Queen, the people around you seem to become excited and follow you as soldiers might. They seem to be doing their best impression of soldiers for you.
I will turn to people near me and say, if you have any questions that I might be able to answer, feel free to ask. And if I can't help answer them, then I might be able to help find where those answers could be.
Sure. A younger child, actually, tightly holding the hand of her mother, will look up to you, and you'll notice that the light of Ash's body is dancing in her eyes, and she's staring at it for a moment before, her gap-toothed smile closes into somewhat of a grimace, and she says, "Actually, mister, I want to know, all the stories that we were told growing up say that we should be wary, scared, stay away from the Drow. Why are these different?"
Just trying to formulate my response to that. Give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here goes. Shut up, don't talk.
Out of character. He turns any other questions.
It's gracious.
Keep your children under control.
Many stories that get told tend to be general warnings about things that could sometimes be dangerous. For example, your parents must have told you stories about venturing off into the woods alone. I look expectantly for a nod or something.
The parent who is with the child nods and says, "Well, of course we have all of the stories about the forest of Bala and things of that nature."
But people do go into those forests, and sometimes there can be scary things, but sometimes things can be fine. It's good to be cautious sometimes, but the stories are distillations of generations of warning, and so are not always going to be applicable all the time. There are certainly going to be some people, Drow, human, I gesture at myself, elves, that are going to be less savory sorts, but then there's going to be others, I gesture at Zeph, who are very kind and want to help.
She looks a little confused first and says, "So, the stories are lies?"
The stories hold grains of truth. There is a god holds quite a bit of sway over many of. Gods tend to hold sway over large groups of anyone, and the god who holds sway over a large portion of many of the Drow civilizations is not a pleasant person, pleasant entity. I say the proper kind of word there because deity.
Lolth is considered a god.
Yeah, so deity. But that doesn't mean that all of them there follow her. Just like not everyone here is going to be the most ardent follower of Pelor.
The child's mother is going to interject at this point and say, "But we've always been told and taught our children likewise that all the Drow follow Lolth. They aren't... That's the only god down there to follow."
Unfortunately, given the nature of Lolth's teachings, many stories that could point otherwise are difficult to make their way up to the surface and into the ears of those who might spread them. But that is not entirely the case.
There are other gods, is what you're saying.
Did we say something about Illustray?
Not to these people.
There? Okay. I wasn't. I was trying to remember if we had or not.
I mean,
I
it
think
came
we might have
up.
said it to the small group with.
I mean, I think you might have
the old
used
guy?
it. It might have come up as an argument against Chad, but it was very ineffectual as an argument against Chad because of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Fucking man.
So yes, Illustray was mentioned to the larger group, and you can point back to that argument. But you know that during the argument with Chad, it was not well received. It fell on deaf ears.
Yeah. So Laura Mendes will say, there is. Her name is Illustray, and he will begin speaking a bit about what he knows of her nature and desires and that kind of thing in a way that makes sense and is non-threatening to a child.
Right. If anybody wants to interject with anything useful, but you don't know what you want to say, you can make persuasion rolls. If you'd like, if this is the type of thing where you think that your character's voice lent might help, what you do see going on here is that being able to ask these questions and talk openly about it with you guys is helping these people to understand the situation and making them more comfortable.
I would certainly try to help, although I don't have any words at the moment.
Persuasion roll.
That's what I forgot.
You can do the same, Raiken, if you would like.
Yeah, I forgot to put up my stats, so it's gonna be a second.
Okay. I promised I would do this. Sam, if you would roll persuasion with advantage.
Alrighty. I can attempt to do that.
The advantage reflects the fact that you made the argument, and all of this will count towards the skill challenge.
It's 2 14s on die.
Alright, not
uh,
bad at all.
Persuasion is that's gonna be a 14.
I believe
I
I
am
got a
charismatic.
22.
I'm waiting for mine to come up. I got a 17 on die. I'm waiting to see if I get anything bonus.
Alright, I can quickly pull yours up if you don't mind me doing so.
You probably have a charisma bonus, so I would imagine.
I think his charisma bonus is +3, because that's your,
Save.
save
Yeah.
bonus.
Yeah. So it's at least +3.
Oh my god, my phone is usually faster than this.
Alright, well, I have it here. No, Kiba. Where's Raiken? There he is. View. Yes, you have a charisma bonus of +3, so your persuasion is a +7. So that sounds like a 20, if I've remembered that you said you
Yeah.
got 13 on die.
It's I got a 17.
A 17, excuse me, that's a 24.
Okay.
Okay, so between a 14, a 22, and a 24, and this small group of people, together answering their questions and generally creating an air of friendly conversation and education, you are able to bring up these people's spirit, and they seem to be latching on to the ideas. They are clearly taking hold, and, you know, even though they are very counterintuitive to what these people have learned thus far in their life, they seem to be accepting it far more readily than when they were in the crowd being led by Chad. They come in, you know, with questions about the stray, you know, any specific information you can provide, you are able to do so from your rolls. The Drow that you have met so far, you're able to speak to that. When the tougher questions of, you know, the need for the burial and everything comes up, you do find savvy ways of explaining how understanding can evolve over time, and the needs of a situation can change very quickly. And so this is, you know, you came in trying to protect the city from a perceived threat, and through the course of the situation evolving, you realize that the threat was not what it seemed, and now you are in fact making amends to the Drow by doing this for them. You can't bring the people you killed back to life, but you can show them the respect that they deserve as living beings and humanoids by having this ceremony performed, and by working together with them to find a way for them to live in the city. All of this comes through with an emphasis on you're doing this because it is the right thing to do, because these people deserve... Sorry, I got distracted. I didn't recognize the purple name on my list there. Couldn't read it from over here. Lost my train of thought. I apologize. That you are doing this because you realized that you were in the wrong in killing these people, and that now you are trying to make things right as best as you can. And that's kind of the important lesson here, is that the reparation needs to be made, the change in attitude and the treatment of these people needs to change. And it starts with you. And so, through your talking to them as you make your way from the market district, you do manage to get that across. Okay. I saw a tag on my Discord. I thought somebody was trying to get my attention from the game. It was simply totally unrelated. Okay. And then you come to... Click the wrong button. Then you come to the temple and head inside, where your friends are finishing up dressing the corpses and preparing them for the ceremony with Oraskr. And actually, I'm going to ask to utilize my newly created voice channel, because I have a quick question for one of the players. So I'm going to drop in there and drag them with me, and we should be back in a couple of minutes. Okay?
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh yeah, you're in so much trouble. Boom.
Oh, was it me?
Oh yeah, it's you, Jacob. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. How about you?
So normally we do this in text, and honestly, this is kind of a double-edged sword. We're trying out something new. I like having the text records to be able to go back to and point to, but this way, it's still recorded. We're still being streamed right now, but I can have private conversations with players, like if they roll for knowledge. That way I can share the knowledge with you, and I don't have other players jumping all over it, knowing things out of character that their characters don't know. I think that'll work out okay. So, I wanted to and this is totally a simple question. I just wanted to know about the ferret that you found. If you are obviously playing with this thing, or if you are kind of, keeping it on the down low.
Oh, I'll play that. I'll play with it.
Okay, so
He's my favorite. He's my favorite little guy. Lord Squeaker's the second.
Alright, so you find this thing, it goes into your pocket, and throughout the rest of your time dressing the bodies, you're going to be messing with it from time to time in an obvious way, so people will have noticed, is what I'm understanding.
Yes.
Okay, alright, just wanted to make sure that I am providing the correct information to people in the scene. Alright, thank you very much. We're going to jump back over there.
That's so.
Boom. Just like that. Okay.
So fast.
Yeah, it was a quick question. Alright, so, for you people that stayed here to work with Oraskr to dress these corpses, as I told you before, you went through with his guidance and learned to clean and dress the wounds. Cleaning went especially quickly because of magic like prestidigitation, which I believe I was told Leah can perform. Is that correct? Guaco?
What?
Prestidigitation? Can you perform it?
Prestidigitation is one of your spells.
Yeah, I can perform.
Okay.
For what?
I don't know what your cantrips are. I wanted to make sure that I didn't have that remembered wrong.
Oh yeah, no, I can do prestidigitation. Yeah,
Okay.
I used it to clean the bodies earlier.
Right. So that is what I was explaining just now, and I wanted to make sure that I had the information correct.
Yeah. I for some reason thought you were not talking about me.
Right, so yes, so the cleaning of the bodies went much quicker because Leah was able to do prestidigitation, and then you learned how to stitch the wounds closed from Oraskr, who, once that had been explained to you, followed along behind and performed other rites upon them to prepare the bodies for the service. You were removing clothing, cleaning wounds, and then stitching them up as best you could to make these bodies as presentable and remove as much of the marring and scarring as was possible, give them some of their dignity back in death. I will point out to you that we're there at some point during the process of cleaning the bodies. You would notice that Fendar seems to be playing with a small animal that has come from somewhere, feeding it and petting it and allowing it to climb on him. And he stops every now and then to interact with the thing.
No, Wendar, not in public.
An actual small animal, it appears on closer inspection, meaning more than just a passing glance, to be a brown-striped ferret. And he seems quite pleased with it. After you have finished the undressing, the cleaning, and the stitching, Oraskr will finish shortly thereafter the rites he needs to perform on each body, and then asks you to help him place them in back into the shrouds. And they will be arranged so that they can be moved out into the Lich Yard for the ceremony to be performed. And it is around this time, as you are preparing the bodies to be moved out into the Lich Yard, that the other group reappears in the foyer to the temple. They have with them a dozen or so citizens from out in the streets of Volinar, who have come with them, who are now looking around. As you see, they enter the temple and look upon the austere furnishings of the room. They seem a bit apprehensive, scared almost, especially with the, it's bright white stone, but it's somewhat dimly lit by these torch sconces around, so the reflective nature of the stone makes the area bright and easy to see, but otherwise it is sort of enclosed and dungeon-like, and the statue of the Raven Queen seems to loom over the room all the more menacingly, you notice, as these people look upon it with open fear. But besides this sudden, wide eyes and pallid expressions on the faces, they seem to have been engaged in, I don't know how to explain it. I'm losing the word I want, but active, vibrant conversation. Excuse me, as they entered. So, Lair and Raiken and Cyrus, you enter the room with your posse in tow, and your friends who had remained here have finished with the bodies and are preparing them to be moved out of the building.
Guys all done?
In the absence of a response from any of your friends, Oraskr, who is dealing...
I was going to ask, are we done?
Yeah.
Like, we've finished all of this?
Yes. Yes, all that is happening now is Oraskr is finishing up with the last couple of rites he needs to perform over the bodies before he would ask you to move them. So you are currently waiting. You've been waiting for like 10 minutes as you finished before he did.
Then I just raise my hand to Raiken and just nod.
Raiken will nod back after hearing the Oraskr chanting the rites.
After about 30 seconds of him chanting, he's actually going to cease, and he's going to rise and look over toward the group in the doorway. And he's going to say in his normal monotone, "I see you have returned with more people from the city. Excellent. Please, do come in, away from the rain. Welcome to the Temple of the Raven Queen."
It's not creepy at all.
It is here that we seek to understand and accept the inevitability of death. And I would ask you all to participate so that you might better understand Our Lady of Death. Please. My friends here, he indicates the 4 party members, Leah, Jebel, Vendar, and Yukikaze, have already done the hard work of preparing the bodies, and I've just finished the final rites. It would be good for you to work together to move these bodies out toward their final rest. I will explain as we go, but if you please, 2 people to a corpse. The citizens who have come with you seem even more apprehensive after all of this. And some of them shuffle nervously back toward the door.
A second. Where am I?
You are here.
How loud is he speaking?
loudly enough to carry from, approximately this part of the room, maybe 10 feet away from the party over to the, common folk who are maybe 20 feet away over at the door.
Would I have heard him?
Yeah. The room is enclosed and echoey.
Can I roll insight to see if his phrasing is freaking people out?
Sure.
Well, I don't know if his phrasing is freaking people out.
No, but you are
It seemed
able to...
perfectly normal to me.
But you are able to tell that people seem uneasy. You don't know if it's caused by his wording, but they do seem uneasy. When no one moves, he is going to come closer. He has a white linen that he appears to be wiping his hands with, that it does not appear dirty, so you're not entirely sure what he is cleaning off. But he holds it before him as he stops before the group. I should probably just give him an icon. I have mostly got, icons that seem to make sense in combat. Who are you? I don't know who you are. Well, you're going to be renamed. For simplicity. I think that looks like a tiefling to me. Alright. Oh, that doesn't work. I should have known that doesn't work. Well, crap. I don't have a way of fixing that. Alright, cancel. Never mind. Alright, so he moves over closer to the group and addresses the people directly, sort of looking past the members of the party and speaking to the people, and says, "You need not be afraid here. Death is nothing to fear. It is the inevitable and proper end to life. I would ask you to participate so that you might better understand your place in the world in this life, and to help me show the proper respect to things that have already come to understand that they must cease to be at some point." And he's going to actually step up and reach into the crowd and grab, take a man by the wrist and say, "It is the proper thing. Please, I insist." He looks very uncomfortable with what's going on. But as nobody around him moves to stop the priest, the priest backs up, dragging the man gently with him, and says, "Come. By the end of this ceremony, you will have a much greater understanding of how all of this," he just gestures grandly in an arc over his head, "works, and how we all fit into the grand scheme."
Like 5 people standing beside him who are just like, yeah, this seems like a totally normal conversation. This isn't intimidating or creepy at all.
And he continues to step gently backwards, tugging the man along by his wrist as he looks back continuously, pleading in his eyes. eventually he pulls the man over to the line of corpses, and he kneels down and beside one body and lays a hand on the foot. He says to the man, loud enough for everyone to hear, "This is the natural progression from life to death, and it is my job to see that once a person has died, that they are treated with the proper respect, put in the proper place, and prevented from returning by unnatural means." And he seems to nod toward his own hand, which rests on the foot of this corpse, which is wrapped, completely in the shroud, so it is a person-shaped, white lump, basically. It's all right. For this ritual, it is acceptable to touch and move the dead. As long as we show proper respect, we will not anger the Raven Queen. And he says, you can almost hear this tang of levity in his voice. He says, "It is, of course, impossible to anger the dead."
That to the lich.
There is a pause. You actually kind of see his shoulders rise a little, and he turns slightly to look at you over his shoulder. Gently says, "I draw, as any follower of the Raven Queen, a stark distinction between dead and undead." Now then.
Is the Raven Queen herself dead?
The Raven Queen has transcended both life and death, young lady. The Raven Queen is a goddess. They are neither alive nor dead, and they exist everywhere at all times. Like Pelor or Corellin. Her sphere of influence is that of death. Her command to her priests and priestesses is that we properly see the dead treated, such that they cannot be resurrected into undead, and spread the honest word of the good and naturality of death.
After he says that these gods are everywhere at the same time, Jebel's just gonna be like looking around, just kind of mild concern.
He turns back to the man whose wrist he continues to hold, who is sort of like bent over above him, just kind of wild-eyed looking at this row of bodies. Says, "It's all right, Jerem. Your time is not today, but the time for you to understand this, and to accept this more than ever, has come. Lay your hand here with mine." And he looks again toward his hand on the body. "I am here with you. This is the natural end of life. This is good. Do not fear this. Understand it. Know that this will, one day, be you, be me, be everyone in this room. And understand that that is a very good thing. If we do not step aside to let others thrive, the world cannot continue to grow and prosper. That is the nature of death." A man who is staring transfixedly at the spots on the shroud where the cleric's hand rests takes a few deep, centering breaths. You recognize that he is, in fact, pulling himself into the here and now. And he makes eye contact with Oraskr, before finally coming to rest on one knee in front of him. And with a hard look in his eyes, he raises his left hand and slowly lowers it onto the foot of the dead man, where he retracts it quickly, and then, after another slow breath, places it again. And Oraskr says, "Good. That's good, Jerem. The dead in this state cannot hurt you. It is our duty to protect them and see that they are treated properly. Our duty is to make sure they do not suffer the pain of undeath. Help me protect this one from undeath." And Jerem lets out a long-held breath and looks around, and looks back to the crowd of people in the door and says, "It's all right. He's right. It's just a dead body. What do I do now?" And you see a small smile crack Oraskr's lips, and he says, "Help me lift this one. We're going to move it outside. I will take the head. You hold his feet gently, gently now. We must treat the dead with utmost respect, for they have gone where we hope someday to follow. They are heroes."
At this point, Raiken will walk over and lift a body in his arms as well.
As Oraskr is moving to the head to help with this, he sees you lifting up this body alone to Princess Carriot, and he says, "It is all right to use two people. You are very strong. But this is ceremony. Please ask one of your friends to take the feet. I know you can do it alone, but for the Raven Queen, if you don't mind."
Raiken will begrudgingly, because he doesn't like asking for help.
I know.
Will someone come help me?
Vendar will.
Vendar will? Okay. You, the, ferret is sitting in your hands as you, stroke its back and nose with your thumbs. As you go to offer, to help, it climbs up your arm and onto your shoulder.
Vendar, you got a new friend.
I did. His name is Lord Squeakers II.
God damn it.
Let's see how long this one lasts.
Well, protect it this time.
I'm gonna work very hard too.
The,
Tristan, question.
yeah.
Do animals understand Jebel just when he speaks normally? Or do you have to specifically speak to them?
I don't think any test of that has been run just yet. So I'm not sure if Jebel is certain how it exactly functions. But Leah could ask Jebel if she's curious.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because he said out loud, I wonder how long this was gonna last. And, I mean, the Jebel might be able to hear it.
Oh, that should have been said out of context because Jebel was not around for the previous.
That's true,
Out
you're
of
right.
character. That's fine.
Right.
So
Then it's fine.
we'll find out, I suppose. You should keep an eye and gather the evidence to find out. Oraskr instructs you where and how gently to hold the bodies, and you and Raiken and Vendar, you lift the body, and he points off to the northwest and says, That door there, which is open, it leads out to a small awning, and I have placed a cart there, similar to the one that you brought the bodies on, if you wouldn't mind, with as much care as you can, laying the body there.
Very well.
You and Vendar move together. Roll a, each of you, roll a dexterity check.
Of all the checks.
I'm glad it wasn't a strength check.
No.
I got a 25.
Alrighty.
I got a
Oh, wait. No.
15.
20.
20.
21. At 21.
Alright.
21.
A 21 and a 15. So you experience no difficulty lifting and maneuvering this body out. And through the door, you do find that there is an overhang under which this wagon has been backed up. But there is not a beast of burden attached to it. It just has a couple of handles sticking out the front like a rickshaw. And you gently lay the body on top of it. Head toward the front. And then head back inside. Out, as you stand out there, however, I should stop and describe, beyond, through the around the wagon, through the opening in this awning, you can see laid out before you, the purple area here is the Lich Yard proper, which is a vast field of light-colored stone. Some of them are large, tall, monolithic structures. Many of them are, at very least, statuary. Every one of them gives the impression of grandeur and honor and respect. None of them... I want to make a point that none of them seems like the normal just headstone, or at least very few of them seem like just headstones. Almost all of them seem like they might be mausoleums or, places for multiple interments, as opposed to single-person graves. The place seems to be designed for, entire families or clans or what have you, but it's not really like one person, one grave kind of a deal. Doesn't seem to be the rule here, more like the exception. Just because of the size and grandeur of some of the structures, it would be hard to believe that a single person rests beneath it. Unless they admire somebody of extreme importance, which I suppose you could go there if you wanted. But with the light rain still drizzling over this, and sun rays beginning to peek through the clouds that are only now starting to break up, it is a dull and solemn vision as the steam of the rain in the rising heat begins to cascade off the ground and lift to enshroud the lower stones. You head back inside. Back inside, Oraskr has convinced more of the people that you guys brought with you to take bodies, and a few at a time, bodies begin to be arranged on the cart outside. Despite the initial discomfort that the people in here were showing, especially for the tasks they were being asked to undertake, it does seem that Oraskr and his soft but kind insistence is having an effect on these people, drawing them in, and even the people who seem most resistant to this are beginning to, for lack of a better term, fall under his spell and partake in this activity willingly. The wagon is shaped such that it will require the stacking of bodies, and this is handled with extreme care and under the direct instruction of Oraskr to ensure that nothing improper is done. And the final body to be laid on the cart is that of Lord Sivan. By this time, a few dozen more people have appeared. And the interior of the temple is actually beginning to fill with people who seem to be the city folk of Volinar. There is, a din of light conversation as people talk about what they're experiencing, and you can feel the mixed emotions of uncertainty and fear and understanding and calm as they mingle through the carrying out of this ritualistic movement. Eventually, as the last body leaves the temple, Oraskr is going to thank the people who helped, all of the members of the party and all of the townsfolk who have appeared. He says, "If you'll excuse me, I do believe I have an address to make." And he goes to the front doors of the temple and pulls them open wide, and you can actually see that in spite of anything that you might have assumed, there is a large crowd gathered out in front. And he speaks. He seems to speak in his normal, soft monotone, but his voice feels amplified and seems to carry over the entire crowd in spite of his gentle manner. As he says, "Thank you all for coming today to attend this interment ceremony in the name of the Raven Queen. If you would please, there is a number of gates that will allow you to enter the Lich Yard." And he indicates to his right, over there. "You may follow the procession. We have prepared an area to inter these bodies, and I will perform the ceremony. You need not pass through the temple." And he turns back, and the first person he lays eyes on happens to be... oh good, Laramendus. I had hoped that would be the case. He says, "If you wouldn't mind, could you stand at the gates yonder and direct the people through?"
Of course.
"Thank you. I will lead the procession out that door," and he indicates, "I will leave your friends to help direct the traffic flow. And thank you," he says with an actual smile on his face. "It is good to be serving the Raven Queen in view of so many who are normally fearful. The circumstances, perhaps, to another might not seem the best, but It is good work we do today.
Lormendus will nod understandingly.
He nods and strides past you. You are able to move out, and there is this large crowd who are now slowly milling, up the road this way, toward the larger entrance to the Lich Yard. If you would like, your character will make the announcement to follow him, and you will direct them inside. If there's anything specific you want to say, please.
I don't think there was anything specific.
Okay.
Lormendus feels like he would need to say.
Alright. There is an obvious gate over here that you are able to move to, and the crowd finds it easy to follow you as you've got a bright light bobbing over your head. You do hear as people shuffle past you in among these mausolea. From time to time, the mumbled words referring to the thing floating around you, and you hear Ion's name being passed around. It's hard to get a read on exactly what people are saying, but you know that you are a topic of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
For the rest of you, Oraskr will bid you follow him out. And he asks for two of you to lift the pawls on the rickshaw gently. He eyes the Dragonborn first and says, "There are a lot of bodies. It would be good to put our strongest there."
Raiken will smile and nod and head over to one of the falls.
And I'm going to say that Yukikaze does as well. Says, "Very good. Now, follow me. We do have a few plots open, and we can make some aesthetic changes later, but it should be enough room for the bodies of the Drow to be interred with respect." And he turns... excuse me. I actually have misrepresented what is going on, and I apologize. I had a plan for this. He says, "We have a plot ready, but we will perform the cremation ceremony out in the middle of the Lich Yard. There is a place ready, and it should be able to handle this." He pauses a moment as he looks over it. "Volume." And he stops a moment and turns to Zeph. And he says, "I don't believe we've had the pleasure, but I have been told to make all the arrangements that would be normal for citizens of Volinar in the eyes of the Raven Queen. Do you have any objection to the cremation? It is the most certain way to prevent the undeath from taking hold." And Zeph looks at him for a long moment before inhaling and says, "I asked these people to make sure that my soldiers were treated with the same respect that any citizen of Volinar would receive in death. Therefore, if this is what you would do for anyone else, I will thank you most humbly for performing it for my people." And Oraskr again smiles genuinely and says, "I am most happy to perform the services in accordance with the rites of the Raven Queen for yours or any people who die. It is, and his smile fades as he looks sourly at his nail as he picks underneath it. He says, a most unfortunate circumstance of the city that the leader chose that our temple would not be permitted to perform these rites. A most grievous injustice that I have railed against for years, but perhaps you are already fully aware of the inflexibility of Lord Sivan and his predecessors. Zephyrius scratches his chin with a hand while placing his other on his hip, and he says, I am aware of how this man viewed my people and ordered us treated. I do not hold any of my grudge against the Temple of the Raven Queen. It has long been known to me and mine that you do not take sides in the conflicts of men. Death is death. And Oraskr once again smiles and says, indeed it is. And so she shall enwrap them in her wings and carry them softly across the Shadowfell. He gestures to you, pallbearers, and begins leading the way out into the middle of the Lich Yard. At different points along the route, he asks people to remain behind to help direct people where they need to be.
This place is so big.
A lot of people die.
That's not what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted. Alright, I'm going to make this kind of way.
There's even more that don't even get buried here.
Alright. He leads you out to this large contraption. It appears to be made of black metal, and it is currently billowing white smoke. As you approach, pallbearers, with your cart of bodies, you feel the heat coming off of this thing, and you realize that it is a furnace of sorts. It is a contained pyre, and it is large. For the rest of you, you get dropped along the way, the paths among the graves here, and as you wait, you see the throng of people coming from the gate, and you point them toward the next person as they follow these winding pathways toward where the others have gathered. Once the throng has passed, which takes several minutes as many hundreds, if not thousands of people have appeared, the space around this... I think that was on the wrong layer. Oh well. The space around this furnace begins to fill with people who are keeping back a safe distance as they can feel the heat roiling off of it. And once again, that din resumes and begins to rise as the people chatter among themselves. You can hear them remarking on a number of different topics floating around the Raven Queen, death, the king, the Lord Sivan, the presence of your party, the declaration of the Mages Guild seizing power in the city. Any number of topics, especially ones that allow them not think about death. But they do keep returning to the Drow. The Drow. The Drow. Now, a lot of the talk you do hear, especially in this group, seems to indicate that there is a large amount of goodwill toward the party, wanting to believe that if you have promised to protect them, that they should be able to breathe easy and genuinely try to work with the Drow. There are voices in the crowd that are voicing uncertainty, fear, and even still, even during all of this, distrust and hatred. Eventually, the throng passes, and you each are able to join the ceremony as it takes place. Now, the crowd around is vast and dense, so I want to know if you are going to make a point of gathering together so that you can speak to one another, or if you are simply going to find a place and look on. So, Laramendus, are you going to make efforts to join the others?
Laramendus will make an effort to join Nalia.
Very well.
But not actively seek out anyone else.
Okay. Jebel, are you going to actively seek other members of the party, or are you going to try and find some place where hopefully you can see something? It is a massive crowd of people who are almost entirely larger than you.
Oh yeah, I suppose I'd want to get as close to the front as I can in order to actually see what's going on.
You could push your way toward the cart where you know people won't be in the immediate vicinity of the bodies.
Yeah, okay.
Being small, it's easy enough for you to do that. You find your way to the Dragonborn in the cart. The first thing you notice is just how hot it is here. The heat of the day had already been rising as the clouds began to break up and the sun to show through as the storm began to dissipate, but this is something else entirely. You feel like you are standing next to a massive bonfire, though you do not see the flames. Cyrus, are you going to seek out people actively, or simply find a place? You are also small.
I'd probably just find a place.
Okay.
It'd be hard for me to find anyone specific from my vantage point.
As you push your way toward the front through the crowd so that you can actually see what's going on, you do notice that the crowd is parted around the wagon that is carrying all the bodies, this rickshaw, and you notice that your Dragonborn companions and even Jebel are there. Would you go to them?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't see any reason for it to be split up.
Thundar.
Yeah, he'd go to the cart.
Leah.
There's still a lot of citizens around, yeah?
Yeah, this place is just packed. Probably, a couple thousand people have actually shown up for this.
I might just strafe around, see if anyone looks to be up to something or seems to be curious or in need of guidance.
Okay, what's your passive? Perception?
Passive perception 16.
16. Alright, you are making a circuit around the outside of the group. And there are a lot of people here. Many of them talking, trying to understand exactly what's going on, discussing the events of the day and the previous days in the city of Volinar. Some struggling to see past each other to know what's going on with this ceremony. But by rights, as you begin moving around the group and keeping an eye out, you aren't seeing anything untoward going on. Everything seems to be on the level. I have other euphemisms.
Okay.
Everything seems to be okay right now, but you can continue patrolling, as you've only gone a part way around.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue.
Okay. Alright. Zephyrius does suddenly appear by you and Nalia there. And he smiles, which is definitely not something you're used to seeing on a Drow at all.
I mean, usually not in a good context.
No. He says, "This is quite the turnout, wouldn't you say? I did not expect so many to be willing or even interested to see what we do here. He made it sound like everyone was afraid of the god of death, and I was very willing to believe that, given how I watched them through their lives the years prior to now. They avoid thoughts of dying, so you must have had some interesting effect with your words out in the city."
I do hope that this bodes well for the near and far future.
Everything is a step on the journey of life. This is a step in the right direction, even if change is not immediate. All of the people who are gathered here witnessing this know one thing: that my people, the Drow, are being treated as any of them would be. And even if they don't think that is right, it is happening. And that means it is something they must deal with. That is how you begin to change minds. I wanted to thank you.
Oh?
This is all part of our arrangement. My help and our survival and the survival of the people of this city is contingent on you meeting these demands. But that does not mean that I am ungrateful for the effort you put into meeting them. Surface dwellers have never treated us as people, and we have never treated the surface dwellers as people. That just isn't Drow culture. That is not the way of love. It is... well, it is encouraging to see this happen. Even if only from one person.
What I said to the child on the way here was quite true. I look forward to discussing more stories that might be able to spread.
I believe you, Scholar of Ion. I think that together we can change a lot of things about this world. Starting with this place. Here, there will be Drow on the surface, and there will not be war. That is a goal worth achieving, I think.
Laramendus will nod.
Nalia will take Laramendus' hand and squeeze it, but she seems to be watching the goings-on in front of the furnace.
Mm-hmm.
Before I continue doing stuff, please, if there are things that the characters would like to say to each other. I don't mean to be railroading things so hard, but it's kind of a thing. Sorry.
I'm good.
Quite the turnout. Don't know about you, but I also wasn't expecting so many.
I just need to know who you're talking to.
Just the party in general, those around me.
Okay. Yeah, they should all be able to hear you. Yukikaze unfortunately can't speak unless you want me to try to speak for him, but I'd prefer not to.
Yeah, I don't expect you to.
Yukikaze says appropriately non-committal but affirmative and positive things.
They're just
Sounds
playing like
about
they're
right.
like the gamers, and he's just standing there blank stared. Follows the party around but doesn't speak, doesn't say anything.
Oh man, he's gonna be pissed that we got his character killed. Alright, so Jebel, Raiken, Vendar, you are definitely close enough to interact with Cyrus as he tries to engage you in regard to the size of the crowd.
And I'll turn around and just kind of like glance, taking it in, go like, yeah. They didn't seem all that eager about any of this to start.
Means we're having an effect. It's good. Progress.
Looks like our going around and letting everyone know about the ceremony helped. People are
Indeed.
curious.
Yeah, but we're
That's
not out of
fine
the
with
woods yet.
speakers.
By no means. I'm not sure we're even entirely in the woods yet. But still, progress is progress. Every step we take puts us just a little bit closer to making the world a better place.
Yeah, but let's hope that we can tell the difference between steps and missteps.
True. Guess we better be careful.
And where did that guy come from? Vendor pointing up, and Jebel points at Vendor's ferret.
He was in on one of the bodies. I'm not entirely sure, but he's mine now. His name is Lord Squeakers the Second.
Why the second?
Oh, you didn't know the first Squeakers. Poor guy.
The
But
ferret
he
climbs up on top of the tricorn hat and, looks around at all of you with big black eyes and squeaks at you. Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
Do I hear a squeak or do I hear...
You hear a squeak.
Hmm.
I interrupted Vendar, though, and I apologize.
I have the poor Squeakers. He was with me when we went to Aspara, or not the Arcoja, and unfortunately, I was unable to protect him from the poison.
Squeaker's the second squeaks sadly.
But I will protect this one. He will not die anytime soon.
I wish you the best of luck with that.
Squeaker just again squeaks happily and jumps down onto the shoulder and begins pawing at your cheek.
It would scratch him on the head.
He makes grabby hands at you.
He's so cute. Good boy.
I'm going to cast Goodberry.
Okay. You do
And
so.
then I hand Bendar one of the berries.
Squeakers the second makes grabby hands at the good berry.
I will give him the good berry. Thank you. Here you go, Squeakers. Here you go.
He takes it from you and he squeaks happily. Before munching into it, he is very quickly covered in berry. Just all over his face. Begins. he climbs down into one of your belt pouches where he goes to clean his face off. Okay.
Then I'll just turn to the rest of the group. Anyone else want one?
I could eat.
Thank you.
I'm hungry.
I'll give one to Cyrus.
Yukikase
What?
will accept one, I think. I think he would take one.
I get a hit point back.
What did Raiken say?
Raiken said he's good, but thank you.
Okay. And Bendar?
What?
Well, you got one for your ferret, but would you take a Goodberry yourself?
Oh, sure.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I took one.
So you got 5 left.
Yeah. Everyone who took one got 1 HP back. Don't spend it all in one place.
And you're sustained for the rest of the day. You're not hungry at all. It's
I am
very
actually down in HP, so
So now you're not.
yeah. And I have 77 health instead of 76.
Yay. So as that concludes, you will look up as Oraskr claps his hands together several times as he mounts a platform next to the furnace, and you can see like these robes kind of billowing and blowing with the heat that roils off of it. He himself seems unconcerned with the heat. And he looks around as he continues clapping, and some of the people in the crowd closest, settle down and look up to him. And finally, he begins speaking. He seems to be putting more effort into it, so this might qualify as a shout for him. But his voice booms out magically, just as it had to the crowd before, as he calls for attention. And he begins thanking the crowd for attending. He says, "The Lich Yard hasn't seen a turnout like this since the last war." And he takes a long pause after that, as though expecting a response, but there is a lot of coughing and silence. He frowns and says, "Anyway, the Raven Queen welcomes you to the final resting place of all living things. We are here to lay to rest and prevent from undeath those that have fought in the name of Lord Erkensiven and died. These servants, who so many of us have witnessed about the city and on the docks, who had no home to go back to, who had found themselves here by one means or another, and who may have served faithfully the goddess Illustrae. I have been asked to lay them to rest in her name and commit their souls to her corner of the astral sea. And so I ask the honor of the Raven Queen to take these men and guide them safely through the Shadowfell, as she would any other man or woman or beast. Death is the purview of my goddess, and here we hold sacred the treatment of the dead, and ensure that they are not risen as undead. In this way, we guard the sanctity of the material plane from aberrant and evil creatures. It is with this cleansing flame, and he raises a long-nailed hand toward the furnace, that we will commit these bodies to ash and ash to earth, to prevent undeath and see the work of the Raven Queen done here on the material plane. Know you all that this is natural and right, and it is the inevitable end for all of us. Know you today that this is how you shall be treated, whether you are rich or poor, a worker or a soldier, an elf or an orc. All who die are taken under the wing of the Raven Queen and kept safe in her realm until they find their final, eternal rest with their given god. Today we shall commit the bodies of these 35 Drow. He pauses as he thinks about that a moment and continues. Who fought and died on the streets of Volinar, defending an ideal, just as any of us defends our own ideal. Regardless of who or what we fight for, we are all equal in death. And so, he gestures grandly to the wagon, to the Dragonborn. Let the first to be committed to the flame be brought before me for final anointing.
I'm assuming then you, Kazi, will help Raiken and they'll bring the first body over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Boop, boop, boop. Boop, 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 boop. The area here is open and even enough, well kept, and in this case, strength trumps any need for dexterity, so you are able to easily carry this body over, and under the instruction of Oraskr, place it gently on this platform, this table that appears to be made of metal, and is somewhat reminiscent of the stone slabs that he was working on the bodies on within the temple. And as you place it there, he thanks you in the name of the Raven Queen, and he says, "And now, my people, we commit this man, his body and all his mortal effects, to his final rest. Go ye under the wing of the Raven Queen." And he takes hold of this lever on the platform upon which he stands and pulls on it, and you can see a set of gears twist, and the table lifts up, and the body rolls gently into the furnace, where it begins to burn. And as he releases the lever, the table comes back down to accept the next body. He goes on in much this way, asking for one body after the next, and giving them his final blessing, until all that remains is the body of Lord Raiken Sivan. In all, this ceremony, with all of its pomp, takes roughly another 2 hours, as he makes several speeches, playing up the goddess Illustrae as he was asked. And then finally, all included in the 2 hours, he speaks on Lord Sivan, and how, as with other men and women who have led Volinar at various times in her history, this man's body will not be committed to the flame, but will be anointed in a special way, and then committed to the earth, along with those of the other leaders of Volinar, in a special mausoleum. The crowd is mostly quiet through all of this. Leah, you perform your patrol around the outside, and as these speeches begun being made, you find that even far out and beyond all of these people, and despite the way that Oraskr tends to speak in his quiet, flat tones, you have little trouble hearing his voice carrying over the din, and people do seem to quiet down and listen as he says these words and makes these prayers in the name of the Raven Queen. He explains the final portion of the ceremony for the honor of Lord Sivan, in gratitude and recognition of his leadership of Bromdor, and indicates that the body will be taken there to this special mausoleum as a separate and more intimate affair. And so, as the last of the Drow and the assassins and the Darrow are committed to the flames, he once again thanks the crowd for turning out, repeating that it is important to understand the nature of death and not to fear it. And in this world where resources can be scarce and happiness fleeting, we are taught by our parents and our peers and our life experiences that death should be feared and run from and avoided in every possible way. I am here to tell you that while you should live your life as best you can and get all the meaning out of it that you feel you need, we should not fear death. The Raven Queen is almighty and just, and she protects those who suffer and die in her name. Regardless of which god you commit your soul to in life, she will watch over you. She holds no judgment of your actions in life. She is the goddess of death, and she protects us all from the pain and the torture and the torment of undeath, the unnatural existence that is the return. Put your faith in the Raven Queen. She is the one true inevitability in this world. And with that, he steps down from the platform. He moves over to the now empty wagon and lifts the pawls himself and begins wheeling it slowly through the crowd as people part out of his way. He makes it back to one of the flagstoned roads, pathways in the Lich Yard, and begins heading back toward the temple without a further word. And the people part and allow him to pass and watch him go. And then they begin to slowly mill their way toward the gate once more, breaking into steadily increasing volume, steadily increasing conversation as they go and discuss what they witnessed and their thoughts on it. And after just a short while, a few minutes, maybe 10 total, for these people to file past and find their way back toward the gate, there is a somber, a weight of humility over the crowd as they leave. While they are speaking loudly enough to hear themselves and one another in their various private conversations, discreet, I should say, conversations, they are not shouting or arguing, and even the children in the group are not running and yelling and playing now that the serious part is over. All of them seem to leave, find their way to the gate in a mostly somber and muted manner. The topics of conversation as the people mill around you do seem to flow around, once again, the Raven Queen, the ceremony, what will happen to the city without a leader, what's going on with the Mages Guild, who are these people, as some of them mill directly around you. You do catch these glances from them, some of them excited or hopeful or grateful, some of them uncertain, uneasy, apprehensive, fearful, or even distrustful. But regardless, you do hear murmurs through the crowd about these topics and the topics of yourselves, your appearance. Ione comes up as many eyes fall across Ash as he bobs and glows, impossible to miss. The Paladin of Cord is a subject of much discussion, as his very unusual and unnatural armor stands out in stark contrast to the dark gray stones of the Lich Yard. Eventually you are alone enough to come together and discuss as you will. It is now full dark. You can see that torches along the roadways out beyond the Lich Yard are being lit as you gather up in the wake of the mass departure, as the streets must be lit at night. And Zeph will step out so that he can make eye contact with and speak to all of you. He says, I told your friend Laramendis earlier that I wish to thank you. That this was your end of the bargain to hold up. And while you were expected to do so, I still respect you and the efforts you have put in to fulfill your end of the bargain. I am pleased that my people will be laid to rest in exactly the same way as any other member of this society. And he seems to take on a martial, like military salute and bows low. I had faith that this city could be the spark that sets the world ablaze, and so far you have not let me down. He raises his head again. He looks at Leah. Says, thank you for finding the willingness to work with me.
I mean, it's the least we can do. It is us who put those bodies there in the first place. Even when I tried my best to avoid that.
In war, the goals of the individual do not matter. At the end of a battle, all that matters is survival. We did not think we would encounter people willing to see things differently. We fought to defend ourselves and the goal of making a home for us on the surface. They died defending that goal. And it is my belief that against any other surface-dwelling attacker, their story would never have been known or asked about. Their lives would have no further meaning. But thanks to you and your willingness to listen and work with me, we can give their deaths meaning, and they can serve Illustrae and help to forge a new society. One that is on the surface, with all of you and Drow.
That's
Let,
after you.
let's hope that this will continue spreading and that people are going to agree that this is the right choice for both parties. It's gonna take some more convincing, but I believe what we saw here today is a very big step in the right direction. Tristan, when I walked around during those 2 hours, did I hear anything particular about like uproars, people agreeing, disagreeing?
There were many discussions going on as you patrolled around, and more so further away from what was going on because they could be held without being overheard. Or without interrupting, really, is what that's about. There were definitely some people who did not feel that this ceremony should be done, that felt that doing this for Drow made mockery of the meaning of this ceremony for surface dwellers that it would normally be performed for. Very clearly, very biased against the Drow and not really heeding the words of the cleric of the Raven Queen, who made clear that the service is for all humanoids, because all humanoids are equal in the eyes of the Raven Queen. But nobody was starting anything. In fact, while, there was some commiseration about that, people going, yeah, this is bullshit, they shouldn't be doing this for Drow of all people. In other places elsewhere in the crowd, you would be hearing these arguments, and there would be people nearby saying, well, no, we need to, change the way we do things, change the way we think about things, and he's right, referring to the priest, saying he's right, the Raven Queen is, neutral in all of this. She doesn't pick a side. She only cares that when you die, you stay dead and you go where you're supposed to go, and she takes care of everyone equally. So, while, yeah, there were pockets of dissent, nothing actionable was going on. Everybody stayed pretty docile here. It was all pretty low-key. But, encouragingly, there were some places where, when this type of talk came up, there were those around who tried to fight it, tried to talk it back down.
Okay, then I'm gonna tell him. During the ceremony, I strifed around a little, trying to feel the crowd and hear what was going on in the back. It seemed like most people were just quiet listening in, but some had opinions. But to my surprise, it seemed like a lot of them were agreeing with the priest and even correcting those with opinions. It seems like people really do respect the Church of the Raven Queen and see this as a sign of equality. So I think your idea was worked out, at least for today.
He smiles again, and you can see his eyes drift downward toward the ground as he nods. And after a moment he says, I am glad that the thoughts that occurred to me seems to have had the desired effect.
Zephyrius, I think I might have an idea for our next step.
Please, tell me about it, Cyrus.
I think if we could attempt to construct a temple of Elistray in the city that you and your Drow could be seen worshipping at, might help drive the point home that you don't serve Loth anymore.
He looks around at the group, trying to kind of weigh their thoughts on what was just said. Whatever they wear on their face. Before he raises both of his eyebrows over his eyes, and he says, I like this idea. How will we do it?
Well, I have the ability to make walls of stone, so I think if we can simply find a place, over the next day or two, I could construct one. It may not be the prettiest thing, so some elbow grease would need to be put in for that, but for a basic building, I think I can take care of that.
We should talk to Claire and see if she can give us a place to do this. But I would be honored to work with you on this.
It would be my pleasure.
That actually reminds me, there is something else that would be noticeable to all of you. As the crowd came in and formed up around the furnace, there would have been several people with badges or markers as part of their apparel, part of their clothing. And, after some scrutiny, you notice that a lot of the people with these badges and markers would be congregating, forming small groups within areas of the crowd. Laramendis, because you have more experience with this area, it being, more or less your home, you at least are able to readily identify these markers as guild badges for the different guilds that operate within the city. Merchants Guild, Farmers Guild, Fishermen, Docksmen's Guilds, those types of things. Crafters, smiths and carpenters. So you know that a good, a very not insignificant portion of the crowd were guildsmen who all congregated together and arrived, and found each other in the crowd.
In that case, I will say to Cyrus, I had noticed that there were quite a few representatives of different guilds in the crowd. Perhaps instead of using magic to construct a building, we could hire local craftsmen to work with us on design. It could make sense to have the initial construction be done if we want to make sure that it's known that there is this particular area done with magic. But I believe hiring and encouraging people to be a part of this as well might give them a sense of what's the word I am looking for?
Unity?
Investment? Unity? It's something along those lines. Yeah, that unity makes sense.
Investment and inclusion make sense. They're part of it.
All sound like fitting words.
Armenda says something to the effect of that general sentiment.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Perhaps in the efforts of time, I could construct the basic outline, and then we could work with the guilds to get the place more spruced up and finished.
I think that seems a reasonable conversation to have with them.
What do you think of this, Zephyrius?
I think you are all going to make me cry. I think that we should go back and talk to your Claire Solane,
Indeed.
as
First
she
thing
is the one in charge. She can get the ball, as they say, rolling on this.
Yes. For all this talk will not be of much use if we cannot find a place.
Well then,
So, shall
see-
we? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's fine. I was only going to say the same thing.
Just a second. Shall we have gesture?
Anybody else got anything they want to say to the group or questions they want to ask to anyone present before you leave the Raven Queen's Lich Yard?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Raiken?
Like, good.
Did anyone stand out to me as from the noble quarter?
Yeah, there would have been a few.
Okay, cool.
They were certainly not entirely absent.
Yeah. That's what I
Vendar?
want to hear.
Vendar, you got anything that you wanted to add before we moved out of here?
No.
Okay. Then you move out of the Lich Yard and follow the road slowly through the night as you find that there are people lighting the lanterns on the street as you go. The throng of people seems to have mostly dissipated up through the different buildings and found their way back to their homes. And while it was massive, you know that it represented only a fraction of the city, but a not insignificant fraction. As she had said, there are probably 12,000 people living within the city walls, and there were probably 2,000 people there. You pass the group of Drow patrolmen, as you have several times, and they watch you go by, eyeing you heavily, before one of them speaks up in Elven and says, nodding, "That was good ceremony."
Cyrus will reply in Elven. I'm glad you liked it.
Expect big things.
We shall do our best.
He nods and moves on with his patrol.
Was that a train?
Train?
That might be my air conditioner.
Oh,
Wow.
I can mute.
it's a powerful air conditioner,
Stop.
Sam.
It's also just very close to the mic. Because it is close to me.
So you move into Lightstone Keep and through the halls, and the first thing you notice is that there are now torches in the sconces, and they are lit. The place has a very austere interior in that it is mostly just bare stone. There are runner carpets down some of the hallways, but for the most part there isn't ornamentation. It looks like the place is meant to be, at least on the first floor, as utilitarian as possible, with the exception of the throne room, which is meant to be grand and be able to hold many people, a couple dozen at least. You reach the throne room, moving through the hallways, and you find there aren't any guards or soldiers or anyone on the first floor, not that you ran into anyway. But you do find that the throne room, despite being lit, looks much as you left it, with the portion of the wall next to the window and the window itself broken and blown out. The rainwater stagnating, commingling with the blood of the Bahir that you killed. But no one is there. So you head up the stairs.
I should clean that when it stops raining.
And as you reach the top of the stairs, you see that the area up here is designed much more around feeling like a living space. These are like a long table or set of shelves where things can be kept. There are potted plants, these two red squares out here, and then there are these three rooms, and you finally, for the first time, see any kind of guarding going on. There do seem to be armed and armored Drow standing to either side of this entryway into this room here. All of this, Leah, you recognize as the area you had explored during the fight with Rowan.
It's lit. It's lit now.
It's lit now.
Yeah.
You do hear, boisterous, jovial voices, or at least you imagine they are probably jovial. They are definitely boisterous, as they are speaking in Undercommon, coming out of the side rooms, but it sounds like laughing and storytelling, as best as you can tell. As you come out of the stairway and see this and hear this, the soldiers, the Drow soldiers here, are going to look at you and nod and indicate into the room with their heads and their spears.
Alright.
You want to go in, Leah?
Yeah.
You want to go in, Vendar?
Sure.
Okay. You
Go.
pass around the central. The door is two smaller archways through the wall, and you pass to either side through these archways into the room. You find that the room has a few small tables with chairs, and then a large bed in the corner. Very, very overdone, kind of four-poster with the drawable curtain on it, though the bed itself is exposed at this point. And you see that Nalia is standing just on the other side of some glass panes outside the building on the balcony, and inside there is the Drow you recognize as was introduced as Filson by Zephyrius earlier, who seems to be taking notes on a pad that he is holding against his arm. And he turns and sees you, and he addresses Zeph in Undercommon. And Zeph nods, and then responds in Common. He says, These people have fulfilled their end of the bargain to see our fallen taken care of. We have just come from the ceremony at the Temple of the Raven Queen, and they were put to rest with utmost care and respect. How are things here? Filson does a quick, shallow bow and flips a couple pages on the pad against his arm. And he says, "Well, we've been working with Claire, and she has been trying to arrange things for us, but it's been a lot of responding to citizen complaints and worry over what's going to happen now that Sivin is gone." But we were able to get the word out on her order to the different guilds to attend the ceremony tonight. Did they show?
There were representatives from. Would it be? Is there one that seemed notable in its absence to me?
No.
There were representatives from all of them, as far as I could tell.
And you hear a sigh from beyond the glass, and Claire steps into the room, and she says, "Good. I'm glad to hear that. It was a very good suggestion by Jebel, so I took it as far as I could to the guilds, but it was mostly just my hope that they would listen." They should be able to tell their members, who may or may not have attended themselves, what took place and why it was important. That should be a strong push in the right direction, having the guild masters on our side on this, because they have strong sway over the members of their guilds.
Glad to hear it.
Like I said, it was a good suggestion, so I ran with it.
Well, we may have one more. We would like to see if there might be a place where we could construct a temple to Astray. They might be able to worship it.
She nods to Filson. He begins writing, and she frowns at you a moment and says, "And who is Illustray exactly?"
It is
Wait,
the goddess.
you don't mean... Sorry, go on. I just think I might have remembered.
It is the goddess they serve, one who wishes to see the Drow come to the surface in peace. The estranged daughter of Loth.
She looks to Filson, and he dots a letter on the page, and looks over to her and says, "Hey, that's correct. Illustray is the daughter of Corellin and Loth before she took the name. And she does speak to the Drow of a life without cruelty and a life on the surface. She does not have many followers. But the men here aren't going to have many other options if they weren't already followers."
This sounds like a good option.
I think so, but when you grow up living hundreds of years under the command of Loth and her priestesses, it becomes hard to know what are good options and what aren't. There aren't really options.
It sounds like she has the same goal as us.
If you are working to try and make a place for us here on the surface, and get these other surface dwellers to work with us, live with us, and stop fighting us, then I would say that your goals are aligned with those of Illustrae. She is a good god to know.
Well, I feel like she definitely has a place among these other gods in the city.
So what you're asking is to find a place where a building could be constructed that would be devoted to the worship of Illustrae.
Yes.
Alright. I will see what I can do. The city is pretty well built out, but we might be able to... If it can't fit within the walls, can it be without, and then perhaps we can reroute the walls around it at a later time to include it? I just worry at what'll happen if we try to knock a building down to make room.
It's a hard call. Putting the temple outside the city would send the wrong message, I think. But so might having to knock a building down.
In that case, it might be better to pull out the walls first. To make space.
We would still want some sort of temporary barrier, something, while it may not be a full wall, but something strong enough and tall enough to keep people feeling safe until a full wall can be constructed then.
I think I can help with that.
Okay, then.
I can cast the spell Wall of Stone, so if I do that enough times, I should be able to create something tall and thick enough.
Alright. Well then.
How many of the mages here know fabricate?
Of the mages here, you mean between myself and Nalia?
Fair point.
We are
Do either
the
of you
only
know
guild.
fabricate?
We are the only guild mages assigned to this area.
I learned fabric.
I had said, fair point. Do either of you know fabricate?
No, yeah, I know. I
Okay.
went to go check so that I could get you the answer, and I noticed a message from Malachi, and I was just reading it and making sure I had.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if there had been crosstalk or anything.
Oh,
so.
no, it's all fine. I just need to pull up Nalia's sheet here. She might, unless it's a conjuration
It is
spell.
transmutation.
I was gonna say, it sounds like a transmutation spell.
Yeah. Take the raw materials and build something with it. So it's very nice for walls, because especially if you're just moving a wall, the material's already there.
Material,
It would
yeah.
take a lot of castings, but
That's what sorcerers are good for. They can spend all their spell slots.
And not blow up. Nice.
fabricate, it's not a sorcerer spell because it's useful out of combat.
Dang it.
So very sad.
One of these days, I'll have something more useful than Wall of Stone for out of combat. Oh gosh darn it, I will use this spell to the maximum of its ability.
Sam, do you know offhand what level it might be?
4.
Oh, there it is, 4th level. She does have it. Nalia knows it. It's not prepared today, but she can do it tomorrow.
And if I could find the time to copy it, then I could assist with that. But if the intent is to move the wall, that seems a decent way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Now then, I backed it out because I wanted to look at this. I also kind of want to look at my... Alright. So she says, alright then. That seems... That seems reasonable. I should be able to determine an area where the wall will be easiest to move, to incorporate this building, and that way we don't encroach on anything already existing, and also it will be part of the city within the wall, so as to send the proper messaging.
Any objections, Zephyrius?
Zephyrius smirks in the way that you had seen earlier when he first realized that maybe he could work with you. And he says, I had been going to say something, but I thought I will hold my tongue and see if anyone else comes up with it. And I am very glad that I did that. You are continuing to show that the minds of the people who live on the surface can be changed to include a reality not before thought possible. I have no objection to this plan.
Excellent.
Then, if that is all settled, I would like to rejoin my men and sleep, because it has been a very long day.
Indeed.
Yes, it has. Speaking of which, how are you holding up? Damn it. Claire.
She, looks over to Filson, and again, she seems to be looking to him a lot, and he makes a note on the pad, and then nods. And he says, well, it has been a lot to get through, but the men that came back to the palace with me have been extremely helpful in keeping everything organized so that I can address it one problem at a time, and it seems, as Filson tells me, that we've hit pretty much everything we've expected to for today.
No, I mean, how is it, like, how are you holding up? How are you feeling? It's not that long since I found you here.
Oh, sorry. I hadn't really given that any thoughts. I'm fine. I'm, of course, grateful that you were able to get me out and save your friends from that horrible trap. But honestly, I've been so busy trying to make sure the city isn't going to fall apart in the next few days that I hadn't really stopped to think about how I feel. I guess I'm tired. I'm kind of exhilarated, though. I love the work that we do at the guild, but well, this is the first time I've really been in charge of a project, and I think all things considered, it's going well, so I feel good about myself.
You've been doing fantastic work.
Thanks.
Sounds like this suits you.
Oh god, I hope not. We haven't yet dealt with the fallout of the Mages Guild assuming control of a city that's not going to look good. So we need to figure this thing out quickly and assist the city in installing the next leader. It would not be right for the guild to hold that kind of power.
Guild, no, but
She, looks around at you and kind of shrinks a little. So, I don't want to leave the guild. Magic is my life. Politics is fun, but...
it's a lot right now. It can wait. We've been doing so much, all of us. It's. I think we all deserve a break.
Yes. Why don't you reconvene here on the morrow? I will see what we can figure out for food, and, we'll put together a plan of action for getting that temple built. How is the campaign going with the people?
We still got some work to do. But it's getting better. Because people are at least curious and interested.
There were a lot of people showing up at the ceremony.
She smiles at that and says, I had hoped they would. As I said, I sent word on Jevel's suggestion to the guilds, and hopefully they will carry the messaging to their people. And so, by word of mouth, we can really begin to spread this new goal through the city. And that should help get things moving faster. Do you have any particular hurdles that need to be taken into consideration?
There's been some problems with a man by the name of Chad, inciting violence. They're also talking him down a bit this time, but I'm not quite sure what to do about him.
That's going to be something to deal with actively.
Indeed.
Alright. If you continue campaigning in the city, speaking to people individually, and she lets her gaze rest on Laramendis and Nalia for a moment and says, and teaching them about this Illustray, then, well, then hopefully that works, but it could take some time. What is your next goal?
If we're talking immediately, probably rest.
What is your next goal as a group? Where are you going? I imagine that if you are trying to continue fighting this good fight and saving the world, I can't keep you here in Volinar.
Not forever, no. Our next stop is the Underdark.
And she once again casts a glance to Filson. Only this time she nods, and Filson makes another mark in the ledger before transferring the pen to the thumb holding the book and putting it down in front of him, and says, "And Does any of you speak Undercommon?
No, but I wouldn't mind taking the chance to learn.
Yeah, I was going to ask that as well.
If we're gonna be here for a bit, then yeah, that would be a wonderful skill to have.
Well, lucky for you, you put a smart lady in charge, and she thought ahead to that. And we've all been talking. There's a lot of us Drow here who all are, wouldn't you know it, native speakers of the tongue. We'd be willing to spend time with you daily to help you learn. Give us a week, you'll be pretty good. Give us more, we might be able to get you conversational.
I think it would be best to aim for conversational if we, for both being able to help here, and perhaps if we can find other followers of Illustrated down there, perhaps send them away.
Indeed, we saw that benefit. And we also don't think you'll get very far in the Underdark with just signs and grunting, even if you have a common cause with someone down there. You'll need to talk. So, if we were to... Interesting. Go... If we were to go by the rules that I set up long, long ago, it takes about 30 lessons to add the language to your character sheet as something that you can speak and understand conversationally. And, as I have said before, you can have 3 hours of lessons per day, and each lesson must be an hour, which means that in 10 days of hard study, you could fulfill the mechanical requirement to be able to speak and understand the language well enough.
Alright.
Good to know.
10 days is also a reasonable amount of downtime to be able to rest here, see this campaign through to try and sway the hearts and minds of the people of the city, and to make other preparations that you might need before heading into the Underdark.
Indeed.
So, if the party is okay with it, we can state that you're going to stay in the city to get these things, among other things, done for the next 10 days, and we will make some rolls to determine how well or how quickly or how far along things are before you leave. These would be how well or how far along you've pushed this changing the hearts and minds of the people, how done is the temple and the moving of the wall, any other things you might want to do, like the wizard learning spells, or people doing any number of things, training themselves. 10 days is a good chunk.
Could I train myself to use a gun?
I think that's a feat.
Yeah.
I think the majority of Cyrus's time would be devoted to, Drow relations.
Thunder wants
Leo
to find a habit hatchery.
Yeah, Leah would. Well, okay. First off, during already the first night, before going to bed, she will resummon Lorelei, and she will fill her in on everything, slow and very carefully, on what's been going on. Starting off saying, "This is a long one. Since you despawned, a lot has happened, and it's very important you stay quiet while I explain. You might not like this, but I believe it's to be important for my goal in fixing this world."
All right.
Start explaining. Yeah.
Yep. You are able to explain it to her. She does have difficulty staying quiet, as she wants to ask questions and remark on things, but you get through it. Okay. So, yeah, I guess I'll start there. So, Vendar, what would you like to do for the rest of the evening before going to sleep?
How late is it?
It's full dark now, like 9 or 10 p.m.
So I imagine like stores would be closed.
Yeah, pretty much. There might be, like, bars and things that are open, although, you know that they've been in kind of martial law until today, so it'll be low patronage even then.
I'll probably just play with squeakers then. Oh, and I need to get arrows out of my bag. I'm running low.
Okay. Yeah, you have time to do all of those things, so just mark down that things have been transferred from one place to another. Raiken, is there anything in particular you want to try to accomplish this evening? It is late.
I take 7 arrows out of the bag, Leia.
Raiken wants to eat a late night meaty meal.
A late night mini meal.
No, meaty meal.
Meaty meal, excuse me.
Only
There's no
meat.
such thing as a mini meal for Raiken.
Sure, they're mini meals for Raiken, they're just full meals for everyone else. Yeah, you do wander the town and you eventually find a place that's open with a few people inside. And the person there will invite you in. When you go to do this, are you going to still have the armor on, or are you going to switch back to your civvies?
At this point, I wouldn't have my armor.
Okay.
Like a little more secure now.
Okay. And so he would welcome you in and ask you, what you're having. There are, as I said, just a couple other people inside. The place is pretty quiet, dead. Most of them seem to just be drinking at this point, quietly, mostly by themselves. A couple that are together, just talking, dull roar style.
Okay. Yeah, Raiken would have basically just ordered every single piece of meat that's on the item on the menu.
Okay.
He hasn't eaten all day.
Alright, he's gonna charge you like 10 gold for that.
Yeah, that's why I took the good berry.
Okay. Well, Raiken wanted meat. He didn't want a berry.
What is this, a dinner for ants?
So he's gonna charge you like 10 gold for that. And as he brings out the food to you with the help of a woman who is probably his wife, he's gonna stop and say, friend, I don't recognize you. Are you a traveler through town?
Yes, I am a traveler, but I'm staying for a few days. I'm part of the group, actually, that came and we're trying to get the Drow in the city. And Raiken's gonna look to gauge his reaction.
He's going to be kind of nodding along until you get to that part about helping the Drow, and he's gonna kind of stop and say, "Oh, that group. I see. Well, what do you think of them?"
I think they're just trying to make their way in the world just like everybody else.
You're not worried about stories of what all Drow do.
Based off of what I've seen, those stories aren't all true. Just like how every orc isn't evil, and even Dragonborn, there's even bad Dragonborn, bad elves. Every race isn't full good, but they're not full bad either.
He looks around uneasily and just says, well, I hope you're right, stranger. We didn't even let the Dragonborn inside when they came, so I'm a little surprised that now such a extreme measure is being taken with the Drow.
Well, I think everything will go positively as long as everyone is accepting and don't harbor any ill will. What was that about the Dragonborn?
Wait a second.
He says, oh, well, you know, Sivin did that, kind thing and got the Dragonborn from Arcosia off the island. You know, got ravaged by a dragon and whatnot. Brought them here, but we didn't really have housing to put them in, so we put up some temporary structures outside the wall, and they stay there. Well, ones that aren't serving in the army.
So there's Dragonborn currently outside the wall.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They got a little village for them over to the west.
Thank you for this information, sir. And Raiken will hand him another gold piece.
Think nothing of it, sir. Please, come back anytime. I'll have new meat the day after tomorrow.
Thank you. It was a delicious meal.
You're too kind, sir. Safe travels, and I hope you found a comfy bed to stay in tonight. If not, I've got one.
I do have one. I appreciate it, though.
Very good, sir.
Raiken will get up and leave then.
Alright. Jebel, what would you like to do for the rest of this evening?
Laramendus is going to ask Jebel if he would be willing to come with him to drop the cart or the wagon, the lumber transport thing off at the stable yard, since the horse did not particularly care for Laramendus.
What?
If that's us, then I will say yes.
Just gotta move some icons around here so I can get a handle on where people's be goings. Cyrus just wanted to go to bed, right?
For tonight, yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And, Leah? Bed? Or something else?
After I'm there. Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, needed to make sure that I was in fact unmuted. Yeah, after speaking with Lorelai, making sure that she's on page with me about this, I will go to sleep. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So all that can happen here at the man's.
Yeah. Will I sleep at
Nalia's?
Nalles?
Or that was my understanding. Is there somewhere else you'd like to sleep?
Yeah, no. I just wanted to make sure I understood it right.
She's got a big place.
Yeah. I have an idea for what I want to do during the week, and then it would have to start already the first day speaking to Claire.
Okay. Just given the time, I think we'll end up hammering out the details of stuff that happens during the week at our next session. But I'm gonna try and round out what's going on tonight, and then give you a basic overview of the things that get done in general, so what you can add to your sheets. And then next week we will talk about like individual goals and things that span those 10 days and what bonuses those will end up conferring.
Cool. I'll just can I just say what I want to do then?
Okay.
Just so I don't forget it because it's fresh in my mind. I just got an idea.
Okay.
Right now?
Yeah, please. That way it's on the recording.
Yeah. Leah wished to see if it's possible to find a place to create like an after-school meeting for like schoolgoers and late teenagers to speak their mind about this, and so they can meet her and discuss this change, because she believe that the young is the future and they need to understand this as well.
Okay. All right. Then that will
and since she's also young, she can speak on their level.
Yeah. No, I think that's a cool idea. And that will be something that you can bring to Claire and work on during the week, and we'll make some rolls and determine how well that all goes.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Vendar, had I come to you yet?
I think so.
What are you doing for the night, then? I've forgotten.
I'll probably just go to bed and play some with Squeakers.
That's right. You said you were going to play with Squeakers. How could I forget that? I'm sorry. Squeakers, Lord Squeakers II.
Yep, Lord Squeakers II.
He is a very happy little ferret.
Is he like a Viscount, or what is he?
Shut up, Sam. Alright, so...
Clearly a Duke.
Clearly a Duke. Larmendus and Jebel go to retrieve the horse and wagon that they borrowed from the stable. And, of course, as you approach this horse, Jebel, you immediately, hear it as it talks to itself. You can see its ears twitching as it notices you approaching, and you start hearing it say, "Oh, someone's coming. I'm gonna bite him right as soon as they get near me. Oh, I'm gonna let them get up close. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. They're gonna think, oh, what a nice horse. I'm gonna bite him right in the ass."
Larmendus continues approaching the horse.
Who did he say he was going to bite the ass?
Whoever's
First
approaching.
Then I'll just... Hey, stop that, you!
I heard that voice again.
Yeah, you did.
I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. What did I do wrong?
No biting.
Alright, but you gotta tell me what you are.
I'm a gnome.
Gnomes are very biteable.
You know, not this one.
Why? He's like still like very directly looking away from you as Lair starts getting the making sure that all the ropes are hitched up proper before trying to move the horse, while keeping his distance from the animal while you talk to it. And says, "So why can I understand a gnome? That just doesn't seem natural."
No, I think it's magic, as I said before. I think magic.
What's magic?
It's just something that I think defies nature.
What does this look like from the outside?
Like
Is
he's
he
talking
speaking
to the
normally?
horse. Like you're hearing half the conversation.
Okay, cool.
He's speaking in common to the horse, and he continues talking as though he's receiving responses.
I begin launching into a lecture about the nature of magic, and I'm glad you asked.
So, Laramenda starts chatting your ear off about what magic is.
So it's like every now and then, it's like Jebel just kind of repeats what he's saying, like to the best of his, like Laramendus might have like a sentence that's full of like very complicated details, and then Jebel will just kind of like repeat it as simply as he's able to,
Mm-hmm.
Laramendus seems,
But he's not looking at Laramendus; he's looking.
It's just like Laramendus is nodding along. He's excited that you're following the lecture and trying to like put it into your own words, and like you're paying a lot of attention, and he is thrilled.
And the horse
like
just...
the most educated horse.
Did he have a name, or is he Hans now? Because he's clever Hans.
He was it started with a G.
Okay.
It wasn't like
Let's have a different
Gunter,
horse
was
that's
it?
Clever Hans. It's only good at math.
Gunter. Gunter's the only name coming to mind, but it wasn't. I don't know.
Maybe it was Gulliver.
Gulliver. It was Gulliver.
Oh yeah.
That's what it was. Because Gulliver travels.
All over the city.
Yeah. Everywhere.
You usually just travel my beaches.
Ha 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 ha.
So unless Jebel like stops Laramendus,
He's just gonna keep going.
he's going. Like, we're gonna be like driving along, and he's going to continue. Like he's almost lost to the world.
No, I'll just be repeating to the horse.
God.
The horse just sort of nods along, and she was like, "Okay." Like, just doesn't really have much to add to that. It's just like you can't really tell if it's going in or not. But he isn't biting anyone, and he doesn't really even seem to notice as Laramenda starts leading him. He seems to just be kind of, his ears twitching in your direction as he's listening to what you're saying. And you get to the end of it, and he goes, "Okay, but what's magic?" Like, can I eat it?
No.
Can I bite it?
No.
Depends on the magic.
Well, that sounds terrifying. I mean, you get near the stables, he goes, "Oh, wait, I smell home. When did we get here?"
Give me Just say, like, however long we've been here.
Just got there. You lead him back through the gate, through the stable yard, to the pen, and begin
Across the water.
putting him away. You have to tell him to get into his particular paddock, Jebel, but he does so as he's still, like, the entire time that he interacts with you, he's just sort of, like, very stiff, and most of his responses are just, okay, alright, I can do that. Like, he seems like he might even just be scared of what's going on, so he's just doing anything in his power to, like, get through it alive.
I forgot about something.
What's that?
Forgot to fix someone's oven.
Fix someone's...
Not yet. That was my intention for tomorrow. It's late to go and barge into somebody's house and be like, I'm here to fix your oven! Bakers get up very early.
They do. They have to have things cooking very early so they're ready when people actually want them.
But I did not forget about the oven.
I didn't think you had, but I totally had.
And you close them up in the paddock, and you go to leave. And as you're crossing this mucky, muddy stable yard full of who knows what, you do hear that familiar twang. Is, hey, who's there? Out in the yard, I see you.
We came to bring back the horse and the wagon.
What's that you say? Oh, it's you folk, the ones that borrowed Gulliver and the wagon. Yeah, I remember now. All right,
I hope you've
so
had a nice evening.
oh, very quiet, peaceful. Like somebody came by earlier and said I should go attend a funeral or something. I said no, thanks. Got enough problems here.
It was a
Don't-
very nice ceremony.
Oh, you went to the ceremony with Gulliver then, huh?
Yes.
Oh. Well, okay then. I'll just see how Gulliver liked it. Then I'll ask him in the morning. Okay. Well, I assume you didn't have any problems with law or nobody then.
No, everything was quite smooth.
Oh, excellent. And Gulliver didn't give you any trouble?
I look at Jebel. No, he was quite nice to deal with.
Ah. Well, first time for everything. Okay then, well you folk, you have a good night then. I'll see you around town or something later, eh? Don't forget about, John, I think was
Can't
his
remember
name.
his last name.
Stones, I think I'm turning on my I'm pulling up my list now. Maybe now. Hey. There we go. Alright. Nah. Go to the right. There we go. His name was, John Craigston. Baker of renown.
I was intending to go and see him tomorrow as soon as I could.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, then, you two have a lovely night and stay out of trouble with the law.
You too.
Okay, then. Toodles. He goes
I leave.
back inside and the door closes behind him. Alright, so you've taken the horse back. Is that all that you wanted to do? Because I know that Jebel said that he had something he wanted to do that wasn't this.
Oh no, I was undecided. I was in the middle of thinking,
Oh,
and when I was asked if I'd help bring the cart back.
okay, well, you two are now here, and that guy is not. And so if you've got anything you want to do, you can talk to each other about wanting to do it.
I think I want to go to bed. If it's that late.
I think that Laramendas had promised the Temple of Ione that he would stop by after the funeral to discuss with them a bit more. I don't think he will stay there long before going and getting some rest. But
If he asks Jebel to accompany him, Jebel will say yes.
Laramendas will say that that's what he's going to do. I suppose he would ask if you wanted to return to Nalia's or join him. He doesn't intend to be there long. So.
Where is the temple from where we are?
Near the keep.
Sorry. Zoop. Here's the keep. Here's Nalia's. And the Temple of Ione is the white one.
Well, if we're passing the keep on the way, I'll head in and just go to bed.
Okay. Are you staying at the keep or are you staying at Nalia's? I mean, both are options, I suppose.
Oh wait, where are we sleeping?
Most people are at Nalia's.
Oh, then that's where I'm going.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wander into the keep and just like, okay, which room is mine?
It's just a bunch of drow, like, I guess anywhere.
You go to that big bed and just collapse into it right in the middle.
Everybody's slowly showing up.
If Jebel is heading that way, Laramendas will ask him to inform Nalia of where he is. Or where he will be, where he is headed.
Then I will do so.
Excellent. Okay. After you get done with your food, Raiken, you go where?
I mean, Raiken's ready to take a power sleep.
Power sleep, alright. Raiken gonna
All
go...
sleeps for Raiken are power sleeps.
Alright, let's see here. I own a human and an elf.
I don't know if, given the time, we want to either do this next time or we can just chat offline about the basics of what he would be discussing with them.
Yeah, you're right. We are half an hour over, so we can pick it up next time and then discuss the mechanics and get the rolls out of the way for the 10-day time skip. It's so weird to think I don't like time skips in general, but it just seems the most viable way of handling what's going on for this. Okay, then that's fine. You go to the Temple of Ione. Everybody else goes for a power sleep. We'll declare the long rest next time. Alright, so cool. Everybody, please receive 600 points of experience.
600?
600. There's a lot of just like scripted stuff and not a lot of chances to roleplay today, so sorry about that. Scripted's wrong. I didn't use a script. There was a lot of scenes to watch.
Just like I don't need tiny cue cards.
Gotta make it up on the spot. So everybody got that? 600 XP?
Yep.
Okay. Then, we will see you next week. Good night.